Hey, this is Principal Bob, the electric principal, and as of January 20th, the world's going to change because elections do have consequences. And in particular, what I'm interested in talking about today is the wonderful world of EVs and how that might change and what would happen. So let's talk about that for a second. How is the change January 20th going to potentially impact EV buying and your own pocketbook? I think you're going to see the tax credits go away. I think you're going to see the price of EVs go up. But more importantly, how is this going to impact the overall production of EVs and the future of EVs? I'm also going to talk a little bit about whether you should buy or lease at this particular point, because I've been talking about leasing a lot to many people and on my video, but maybe it's time to think about buying instead. And I'll tell you why I think that in the next few minutes. And then what's going to happen to the cost of new and used EVs after January 20th, because that also impacts your buying decision. And then in general, I'm going to talk about the future of EVs, which I still think is bright. I'll give you a little hint there. And the impact on infrastructure and how that might impact you as an EV owner. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about this, and I can't wait to see what you have to say in the section below when you get done watching the video, because my listeners give great contributions and they also make me think, because I think in general my audience is really intelligent and they've got some important things to share with my viewers. Thanks a lot. So let's take some time to talk about specifics about what happens after January 20th. Now, most of you already know that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are two peas in a pod right now. And I've had a lot of people say to me that they thought since Elon Musk was going to be in the White House and the best personal friend of the President of the United States, that maybe that $7,500 tax credit's going to stay. But for whatever reason, Elon believes that $7,500 tax credit hurts his company and not help it. He thinks he can compete better and have a better playing field for his company if we don't have that tax credit. And you know what I really think would be better for his company? If he'd focus on electric cars and spaceships and not worry so much about politics, because gosh, I have so many buyers that come in and customers in other dealerships that I've worked with that come in and say they're not going to buy a Tesla because of Elon. And gosh, almost every customer that walks in the door in any of these dealerships I've worked with, that's the first thing they'll say. I've never buy a Tesla, even though Tesla makes pretty good cars. He's turned them off. If I was a stockholder, I wouldn't like that, but I digress. So let's talk about what's going to happen. That $7,500 is going to disappear. And that's a huge incentive for manufacturers that qualify for it. The other thing that's going to happen in my good state of Colorado is the tax credits are going to go from $5,000 to $3,500 January 1st. So that's going to impact what you're going to pay for a car, particularly if you live in the great state of Colorado. All right. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, what impact is this going to have on growth long-term for EVs? Hey guys, I believe EVs don't need tax credits to continue going forward. I think tax credits helped a lot, and it got a lot of people who weren't really into EVs or didn't understand them to try them. And I'm going to tell you what, 90% of the people who step foot in an EV and actually drive one want to buy one and put it in their plants because it's just a superior product. I think EVs on their own, they're more comfortable, more convenient, 95% efficient. It costs way less than gasoline if you're charging at home. I mean, significantly less. So I think, to be honest, EVs have a lot of advantage on their own. And the further we go into technology, the cost of batteries is just going to continue to decline. And you're going to see EVs actually be cheaper, I believe, than building a gas motor with 2,000 working parts or moving parts just to get the car down the road. So long term, I am really not worried. It may slow it down a bit because it'll bring fewer people into the dealership looking for a bargain. But I think in the long run, EVs are going to be just fine. And the other thing I worry about is the impact on infrastructure. What impact is this going to have on infrastructure? Well, it could slow that down. Now, guys, I've driven all over this country in all kinds of EVs. I took this Ford back and forth from Texas just a little while ago, took a trip up to South Dakota. And I wasn't driving my Ioniq, I was driving this thing. And to be honest, it was a piece of cake. It was not difficult. 4 years ago, there was a challenge to driving, but no longer. And as a matter of fact, I stopped at a brand new charger in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, beautiful Electrify America, the best of the best. It works fantastic. And the second thing is that in most of my travels, I rarely run into other people at chargers. That's just the truth. As a matter of fact, on the way back from Sioux Falls, South Dakota to Fort Collins, Colorado, I ran into one person who was charging the same time I was, and that was in the great state of Colorado at Fort Morgan. So I'm just telling you, when you go out on the road and you drive EVs across country and it's not during a weekend or a holiday, it's not that difficult. I have not found it, my own personal experience, not difficult. You may find that a little different. And the other thing to note is in January, for Hyundai, the Tesla network is going to open up. Every car company that's going to NACS, North American Charging Standard, is going to have access to the Tesla network by the end of 25. And I do thank Elon Musk for that, because I think a lot of infrastructure problems that people think they have goes away. Because I use Tesla chargers all the time. They're really not very expensive. And they work great, seamlessly. They're not a problem, and all I do is plug in an adapter in the side of whatever car I'm going to be driving, whether it's a BMW, whether it's a Hyundai, whether it's a VW, and I'm going to have access to that Tesla network. So as far as infrastructure is concerned, I think it's going to slow down putting in chargers, but I tell you what, the game changer is Tesla opening up its network. The other thing I want to say about infrastructure is that people always have to remember that 90% of the time, the infrastructure you're going to be using is your own house. And to be honest, I take more road trips than most people, but when I talk to people who buy and use EVs, almost 50% of them never bother to take a road trip. They just drive their EV as the second car that goes on that round trip 200-mile voyage, and that's it. And so I still think people really worry about infrastructure almost too much, because to be honest, they're going to be driving it locally. And I'd still say the infrastructure that's there, now I know I live in Colorado, which is a great state for infrastructure, but it's really, really good. It is so much better than it was just 4 years ago. Now let's talk about the impact on production of electric cars, new and used prices. Well, there's no doubt that prices are going to go up. Now, you have to know that a lot of car companies have been absorbing some of that $7,500 tax credit the federal government is given to qualified car companies. But the people like Hyundai, who make their cars in Korea until this year, they've just been giving it to you anyway. Do I think that's going to continue? Not as much. I think you're going to see that slowly begin to ramp down. And I don't think I would count on tax credits next year to be anywhere near what they are today. And I don't think that electric car companies can continue to afford to give you these huge breaks on the price of these cars. But that's not all bad news, right? Because that means that the current value, if you own an electric car right now, is going to go up. If new cars get more expensive, well, logically what's going to happen is used cars are going to keep their value a little more. And that's always been a bugaboo about buying an electric car, because when Elon started knocking off all this money off the cars, and he took a $62,000 car and turned it into a $52,000 car, well, it depressed the value of used EVs. So if you got an EV right now, hang on to it, because I think the value of that EV is going to continue to rise. And that will help stabilize the market somewhat. If we don't have to compete when we sell our EV with cars that are already getting a $12,500 discount in the state of Colorado right off the bat. So I think the price of used EVs will actually rise as the tax credits go away, as the prices normalize around the country. You're going to see those used cars go up in value. Now, that leads us to my most important question is, in the past, I have been telling people that they need to lease an EV because, man, you save so much money up front and you're only paying for the part of the car that you use those 2 or 3 years. Payments were ridiculously low. And so it just didn't make sense necessarily to buy an EV. It made more sense to get a lease on those cars. But now think about this. This dealership alone has sold almost 250 EVs in the last year. The majority of those cars are leased. Hey, in 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a lot of people ready to return their cars. But I'll tell you what, if the price of EVs actually rises, hey, they may be getting a very good deal just buying those out because the residual value will be below what the price could be in the future. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing to think about is if there are no tax credits in the future, you as a consumer aren't going to be able to turn around that EV and get yourself into a brand new one and have those insanely low prices because, hey, the tax credits that funded those things or the dealer incentives that funded those things may or may not be here. So, I think if you're the kind of person that buys a car and likes to keep it for a long time, I think today's EVs will serve you well into the future. 250-mile range. We've got fantastic charging speeds, particularly on these Ioniqs. I think it's going to serve you well into the future. We've talked a lot in this video about, good time to buy, bad time to buy, what could possibly happen, but just don't forget that driving an EV is a superior experience to almost any other vehicle. It just is. They've got more torque, they've got more horsepower, they can zip around like nothing else. They're comfortable in the winter. You can preheat your car and cabin when it's cold outside so that you're comfortable. I love the handling, especially, this is one of my favorite cars to drive, my little Mini Cooper SE. It's only got 80 miles of range, but I don't care because I just love driving around Fort Collins and enjoying the world as I zip past in my Mini. I enjoy taking road trips in my Ioniq 5, fantastic road tripping car. And so I just think that EV experience is so good. And what I think you should do is go buy one. And if you want to wait, that's okay too. But sometime, if you haven't driven an EV, get yourself in an EV, drive it around and enjoy it. Hey, so thanks for watching my channel. I really appreciate it. Channel's growing all the time. I have such a good time doing these videos. And you have a good day. And on Wisconsin.